Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, today's December 1st, and Simon Says Stamp every year comes out with a DieCember release. And this here is one of them this year. I encourage you to check out the Simon Says Stamp shop because there are tons of brand new dies out there, and there's tons of inspiration going on the whole month of December for DieCember. So this is the Everyday Words on the Line die set, and I get to play with this today. Simon Says Stamp sent this to me, asked me if I'd like to play, and I was more than happy to. I'm going to start off by separating each one of my little sentiments. Now these are so neat because they are words that are on a line and great for every occasion. Birthday thank you, and inspiring, and so this is a great stash builder to have in your stash. We're going to jump in. They're all separated. I'm going to grab some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and we're going to start off by doing some ink blending. I have three colors of ink here: Wild Honey, Abandoned Coral, and Worn Lipstick. I'm going to do a little bit of shading at a diagonal, starting off with the Wild Honey. I'll switch my blending tool and go in with Abandoned Coral. And then we'll do a layer of Worn Lipstick right underneath the Abandoned Coral, just blending them all together. And then we'll just repeat it. We'll grab a little bit of the Wild Honey, go right underneath. And I went a little crazy. I kept wanting to use my blending tool in the wrong ink, but I got it down. Okay. Now I'm going to grab a little Post-it tape because I'm going to cover the entire panel. This panel is going to be used for all three cards that I'm making today. And I want to show you a few different ways that you could use this die, the Words on the Line. I thought my Worn Lipstick was a little bit too similar to the Abandoned Coral. They were blending a little bit too well together. And so I decided to grab another oxide ink. This is Picked Raspberry. It's a little bit more vibrant pink, and I think you could really see the variation in color with a darker pink. But once my panel is done, I'm going to add some water droplets using my Distress Sprayer. We'll just go over the top of this panel, and then any excess water I'm just going to take a towel and dab off. We're going to add some texture to our background. Lovely. Now since we have texture, I thought we're going to go full out and add a little sparkle. So this is some Shimmer Spritz. I'm going to go over the entire panel with that. And just to speed up the drying process, I'm going to use my heat gun and dry that glitter. And I think these colors are nice, bright, vibrant colors, and with the distress background and then also the glitter, it just creates super fun texture there. I'm taking a stitched rectangle die and I'm going to cut out a panel. Next, I'm going to grab some white cardstock. I want to create a frame. So I'm grabbing my double stitched rectangle dies. I'm layering two different sizes together to create my frame. And then I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. Now the inside piece of this frame is smaller than my background panel that I had cut out. I wanted to add just another color here. So this is just regular distress ink. It's black soot. I added a little to my glass mat and I sprayed some water on there, and we're going to do a little bit of splattering. Now it looks black now, but when it dries it's going to pull back a little bit on that color and it's going to be like a smoky gray. And I think the gray with those three colors look fantastic. Okay, I'm going to grab my die. For this card today I'm going to use Hey There, and these are great for landscape and portrait style cards. So I'm going to cut out 5 Hey There sentiments. Next, I'm going to use my tape runner and add tape to the left and right side of my window frame. And then using my purple tape, I'm going to secure my frame to my glass mat, making sure it's centered. And then I'll start off by adding my Hey There on the bottom, just taping those ends down to the back side of my frame. And I reuse my purple tape, and so I think this one's about done, these two pieces, because it wasn't sticking to my glass mat. But then after I have the bottom adhered, I'm going to add the top, and then I'll go ahead and add the middle, and then I can fill in my last two, and everything's nice and spaced. Okay, After we have that done, we're going to add some dimension. So using some 3M foam tape, I'm going to go around the entire back of my frame. And then we'll just cut off the excess using my scissors. And I think this is a neat way to create a very different card, but I think it's fun. We're going to go ahead and remove the release paper off of our frame and adhere this to our background panel that's nice and glittery. We'll place that right in the center. Lovely. The camera's not picking up the sparkle, but it sure is pretty. Okay, for my card base, I used an A2 size card base that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then for finishing touches, I have some iridescent stars. I'm going to add a few here and there just for a pop of sparkle. And that finishes off project number 1. Different way to use the die, but I think it's so neat. Here's some close-ups. Okay, for my next project, I have a piece of white cardstock, and we're going to use a stencil. This stencil is from C&CT Stamp, and it's called the Line Circles. I'm going to place that on my white cardstock and tape it down in the back. And I'm going to use those same 3 colors. We're going to start off with the Wild Honey and go over our stencil. Once we have that, and I'm not too particular on the shading. Next we'll go in with the Abandoned Coral and add a little spots of color here and there with the Abandoned Coral. And then I'll grab the Picked Raspberry and go over the spots, just so they're all a variant in color. Lovely. Now we're going to add some sparkle. I'm going to use my Shimmer Spritz and spray right on top of my stencil. Now with the oxide inks and the Shimmer Spritz, the ink will actually spread, so it's not a clean stenciled line. It actually kind of bleeds a little bit, and it turned out really neat. After we have our stencil portion done, I'm going to take some black soot and some water. I just mixed it together with my paintbrush, and we're going to do a little bit of smooshing. I kind of went crazy with my background here, but I really wanted when this dries, it kind of looks like a marbled effect, and I like that. I just dried it and repeated the process a few times. I'm going to actually use this panel for my sentiment, and so I wanted to make sure I got a full coverage. I didn't want any white areas for my sentiment to be showing. Now for this panel, we're going to again pull out that Shimmer Spritz and spray it, and we'll go ahead and dry that up. And I think the gray with the shimmer too also looks great. And then you have the texture too. The cardstock that I'm using is C&CT watercolor cardstock, so there has texture on that as well. But super pretty. For this card today, I'm going to use the Celebrate die. Super sparkly. We'll place that at a diagonal just so I don't have any white areas on my sentiment. We'll tape it down, and I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. That's going to be our sentiment for our second card. And I wanted to show you it almost looks like granite. Super pretty, but the camera's not picking it up. Maybe in the close-ups you'll be able to tell. Okay, this is where we're going to use this panel for our second card. I'm taking a stitched rectangle die, and I'm going to place it at an angle on the very bottom. We're just going to tape that down, and then I'm going to trim off the excess and run that bottom portion through my die cut machine. Lovely. I'll go ahead and add some glue to the very top part of my distress panel here, and then we'll go ahead and add our sentiment, and it fits on that line beautifully, and it looks very clean. And to get it all the way to the edge, I'm just using my craft pick. Any excess overhanging I'm going to trim off with my scissors, and then I did add foam tape behind this, and I'm going to place that on my stencil panel. Now I want to add a little more sparkle, so I'm going to be using some Lawn Fawn Pixie Dust glitter cardstock. I cut out a thin strip that's going to fit right behind my sentiment. I thought the Celebrate kind of got lost with my stencil, so this is going to kind of help break that up. We'll just glue that right behind the sentiment, I think that looks wonderful. I'm going to use Fun Foam to pop up this panel. This is kind of a universal Celebrate card. It could even be used for New Year's, I think. I'm going to trim down my Fun Foam, and then I'm going to tape it down to my panel, and then that's going to go on an A2 size card base. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We're going to use those same iridescent stars and add a little bit of sparkle. And that finishes off my second project. So it's great for the edges, I bet on pattern paper and your oxide ink panels too. Here's some close-ups. You can really see that sparkle. Now for my third project today, I have a piece of white cardstock. I want to use a stitched rectangle die. I cut out a panel. This panel is going to be 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I'm going to take a square die and cut out a window towards the top portion of this panel. We'll just run that through the die cut machine, and then once we have this die cut, we'll separate the pieces. And I wanted to leave my panel basically white, but I want to add a little bit of texture to it. So I'm going to take one size larger of my square dies, place that right over my window. We'll just tape that down, and it's just slightly larger. It's one size up on my square dies. Okay, I'm going to emboss that square die. I'm not going to die cut it, I'm just going to emboss it. So I grab my embossing mat and then my top plate, and I'm just going to run that through my die cut machine, and it's going to leave me a real pretty embossed line around my window frame. So it's a little bit subtle, but I think the outcome really does look very clean. And some of that tape came off, so I'm going to erase it with my eraser. But I love that texture. Okay, now I die cut out the Love You using the Everyday Words on Line dies, and I cut out 4 of them. I'm going to use the ink that's on my blending tool and just shade a little bit of the very top of the sentiment to give this just a little bit of color. Once I have that done, I want to show you just the softness. I think looks so pretty. Okay, we're going to flip this panel over, our window panel, and I'm going to use some score tape. We're going to go around each edge of our window using a piece of score tape. I tried using my tape runner, but with the embossed it didn't work out too well, so score tape does work out a lot better. We'll just remove the release paper, and then for this card I thought it would be fun to go around each one of the edges of my square with the Love You. And it's probably about 1/16 of an inch up from the edge of the square window. And I'm crisscrossing the edges, and I think that looks so neat when you crisscross the edges there. Especially on when I flip it over, you'll see the front side. But I'm adding Love You all over the edges. This is a great way to fancy up your rectangle dies or even your square dies. Just going to trim off the ends here, and I'm going to grab my foam tape. We're going to place foam tape behind this entire panel. Once I didn't remove the release paper just yet. Okay, but I think that looks so pretty. For this I'm going to be using another white A2 size card base, and I thought the back needed a little bit something, and earlier I had created that almost granite looking cardstock, but it was a little too dark. I used a heart die to cut out a heart with that last piece of the distress oxide paper, but I'm going to add a little black soot, some water, and I'm going to do a little bit more of a marble pattern with some watercolor cardstock. Now, like I said, the first panel that I had used earlier was a little too dark. I wanted it to be more like a marble, and so I think this is going to work out great. I did add glitter to that as well. I trimmed down a small piece of it. I wanted more of the white to be exposed, so I used a portion of that had more white showing. I'll just tape this directly on my card front. Once I have it placed, I can press it down, and then I'll remove the release paper off of my panel here. and place that in the center of my card front. Lovely. And then I'll take my little heart and add some foam tape behind there. Place that in the center. So this is a very clean and simple card, but there's a lot of texture in it, and I really like the effect. I'm going to use those same stars and add just 3 to my little heart, and then that will finish off my project number 3. So 3 different ways to use this die, and I think this is a great stash builder, and I thank you, C&CT Stamp, for sending this to me. I think it's fantastic. DieCember is going on right now. I'll leave a link to C&CT Stamp shop in case you want to browse. But lots of fun dies out there this year, so I encourage you to check it out. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. I hope you like my project. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.